Our government's information is being transformed from disconnected documents into open data, standardized, searchable, and accessible to all. And that transformation is good news. First, that transformation is good news for an accountable government. If we publish open data instead of trapping information within documents, entrepreneurs like Graphic and Socrata and Calcbench can republish it on user-friendly platforms. Thus, we empower consumers and voters and investors to explore and make decisions. Second, open data is good news for an efficient government. If we adopt searchable data formats across different programs and agencies, then big data analytics gets much cheaper. Solutions from Teradata and information builders and back office associates can illuminate and eliminate waste and fraud, but only if that data is made searchable first. Third, open data is good news for a more affordable government. If agencies replace paperwork with standardized electronic reporting, software can help companies automate compliance tasks that used to be manual. Thanks to Workiva, RR Donnelley, RDG Filings, DataTrax, Streamlink, and other companies, if this change happens, we can replace layers of lawyers with lines of code. Any lawyers in the audience? We've got lawyers. You're about to be replaced with lines of code if we succeed. So thanks for coming here to participate in some of your own obsolescence. But I think if you're here, if you're leading the transformation, you'll know before you become obsolete. Open data means accountable government. It means efficient government. It means affordable government. But to realize all these benefits, we have to start with policy change. Some outdated laws and procedures still assume that our government is using documents. We have to change those policies from documents to data. The Data Transparency Coalition is dedicated to doing that. Our coalition last year put together a policy agenda that corresponds with your agenda today. Our three-part policy agenda for change covers government management, markets and economy, and law and regulation. In government management, we celebrated our first victory last year when Congress unanimously passed the Data Act of 2014, the first open data law in this country, which requires the Treasury Department and the White House to track the entire government's spending using searchable data and publish all that data for everyone to see. In markets and economy, we pushed for the introduction of the Financial Transparency Act in Congress last May. The Financial Transparency Act requires all 9 financial regulators to adopt open data standards for the information they collect from the financial industry. Open data in our financial markets means better accountability for investors, data-driven decision-making for the regulators, and automatic reporting for the financial industry. Finally, in law and regulation, we're expecting soon to see a congressional proposal to adopt a common data format across the House and Senate for laws and bills and amendments. Today, we're going to celebrate how those current policy changes are making government more affordable, more efficient, and more accountable. We're not just going to say it from this podium, we're going to show it on these screens, we're going to show it in our exhibition hall. Today, I'm excited that you're going to see some parts of this future vision for the very first time. In our 11 a.m. panel, Fiscal Assistant Secretary Dave Liebrick will be sharing your first look at how federal spending will be published in the future, once it is standardized under the Data Act. In our exhibition hall, if you stop by Booz Allen Hamilton's table, you'll see the first comprehensive visualization of federal spending in all of its previously incompatible glory. You'll see budgets, accounts, awards, and payments all in one visualization. That's what the Data Act can do. At 1:30, you'll see the structure of federal grant reporting data, and you'll see how the future of grant reporting under the Data Act looks a lot like TurboTax. At 2:30, the Small Business Administration will be sharing the first agency-wide spending data standardization project, and at 3:45, the Washington State Utilities Commission will give us a first look at standardized reporting by utilities. We have years of work ahead of us. To show you how, I'd like to show you a visualization from our friends at Quid.com that will lead us through the growth of the open data conversation over the last 2 years. Now, if you look at the visualization, you'll see all of the news articles that have been published over the past 2 years with the terms open data or data transparency. I want you specifically to watch the purple. That is the Data Act. You'll see it grow and change as we move forward from September 2013 to September 2015. All of the stories that Quid.com have visualized are connected when the same sorts of concepts are mentioned. And as the growth happens, as the change happens, you'll see that there is a special nodule that is ours. There's a special nodule of these stories that is the Data Act. Most of the landscape of the open data conversation is based on civic information, on information that cities publish, information that local governments published. One of our challenges as this story develops is to make sure that the Data Act is seen as an open data story. You'll see as the visualization goes on that the connections begin to grow between Data Act and all the other parts of the open data conversation. The reason why I'm showing you this is to explain that over the next year, we want to add 2 new colors to this visualization. We need to see, as the stories are written, a whole new area of financial regulatory data on this visualization as the Financial Transparency Act makes its way through Congress and as the financial regulators embrace open data. And we need to see another whole new color on this visualization as Congress embraces the notion of open data and adopts a consistent format for laws and bills and amendments. We need your help to put the Financial Transparency Act and congressional data and much more on this screen. If you are in government, please publish and please standardize. If you're in the tech industry, you should join us, you should join our coalition, but you should also start experimenting with that data. And if you're at Data Transparency 2015 today, make sure to meet the leaders sitting around you who braved the crowds and the security. I'm told the metro system is still running like a whistle. Not sure if that's good or bad. Make sure to meet the leaders sitting around you because they're the people that will be doing all these things. Our work would not be possible without our sponsors and partners. In order to properly welcome you, I'm excited to invite to the podium the Executive Director of the Sunlight Foundation, Chris Gates. Please help me welcome Chris.
Thank you, and good morning. Glad we all survived the Pope chaos out there that ended up not being that much chaos. So that's a good thing. I'm very happy to take a few minutes to tell you about the work of the Sunlight Foundation. We're happy to be partners in this effort and partners in this movement. First, just a bit of history. The Sunlight Foundation, the inspiration for our name comes from the Progressive Era 100 years ago. One of the heroes of the Progressive Era was Louis Brandeis, who later became a Supreme Court Justice, and he wrote a famous article in 1913 that talked about sunlight being the best disinfectant in public life. And so that's really the inspiration for our name and the inspiration for the work that we do. We are currently approaching our 10th anniversary as an organization doing this work. And truly, when we founded the organization 9.5 years ago, the Sunlight Foundation was one of the few NGOs in this space doing civic tech work, working to open up data, and we're happy to say that there's now a much larger infrastructure of organizations working on this, much larger than there was 10 years ago. As we approach our 10th anniversary, we'll be focusing on 3 streams of activity. The first is political reform, which is a core part of the work that we do. There's no doubt that with the recent rulings from the Supreme Court that while we technically might have some limits left on money, really we have no limits left on money. And in a world where there are, excuse me, we're in a world where there are no limits on money, transparency and the release of data becomes even more important. And so we will continue to work to use our tools and to advocate for policy changes that open up more campaign finance data and influence data so that people understand how their political process works. The second area that we'll continue to focus on is OpenGov and open data, where we will both proselytize and do We are advocates for this in every way, shape, and form that we can be, but we also actually work in a hands-on way at a variety of levels to help people in government figure out how to be more open, how to open up more data. We have a team of technicians in Sunlight Labs that actually allows people to work to do this in a real way, and we advise people at all different levels to do that. We work at 4 different levels, and I'll just give examples of the kinds of things that we're doing all over the world. At the international level, we currently have a project in Argentina where we are providing capacity building assistance to both NGOs and journalists who are involved in the transparency and accountability movement there, where there's lots of work to be done. At the federal level, we continue to be very active in FOIA advocacy. We were instrumental in the passage of the Data Act, and earlier this year we had a huge victory when we worked with OMB to release EDIs for every department in the federal government. It was a very big deal, the largest release of data of any government in history. At the state level, we have an incredibly powerful tool called Open States that allows people to track any vote, any bill, any amendment in all 50 state legislatures. It is our most used tool, used by everyone from lobbyists to advocates to journalists. Again, an example of how data can be used to strengthen democracy. And then at the local level, we're very much involved in the movement to bring more open data, open gov practice to the local government world, the municipal world. We're part of a coalition of organizations working with Bloomberg Philanthropies to run a program called What Works Cities. And over the next 3 years, we will work with 100 what Bloomberg calls mid-sized cities, which is from 100,000 to 1 million, to bring open government policy and practice to those communities. What we've discovered is that large cities have done a pretty good job, and most of them have pretty good portals and pretty good policy in place. But the mid-sized cities are the next place where we need to go, and so we're going to be involved in that in a major way over the next 3 years. We clearly believe that we have to change policy and law to open up more data, but we also believe that data in and of itself doesn't change anything. Just because data is available, it doesn't change much. And so without organizations like the Sunlight Foundation, without organizations like yours that are in essence data concierges for people who are trying to figure out what do we do with this stream of data that is now being opened up, the work that all of us do becomes even more critical, because there's no doubt in our mind that we will continue to get more data available, but then we have to figure out how to make it usable. How do we find ways to make it make sense? We firmly believe that the function of open data plays out in a bunch of different ways. Clearly, government can use data to manage itself better and to do a better job in government. But we also believe that data being available to citizens will strengthen our democracy. That when citizens know more about how their government works, how decisions are made, how money flows, that they'll have more faith in the systems that govern them. And so we think it's important at every possible level. And I will just, as an aside, say that we also think it's really critical for the worlds of civic tech and open data and journalism to continue to find ways to work together, because that's where you can really make a difference. We've been proud to be leaders in this space for the last 9.5 years. We look forward to continuing to be leaders as we move forward, and look forward to continuing to work with all of you to move our agenda. Thank you very much.
I'm excited next to welcome a leader in the fight to standardize and publish financial regulatory data. Mike Starr is the former Deputy Chief Accountant of the Securities and Exchange Commission, now with our presenting sponsor for the day, Workiva. Please help me welcome Mike.
Good morning. On behalf of the directors, my fellow directors at the Data Transparency Coalition, and my colleagues at Workiva, I welcome you to this conference. This is an exciting time because we're seeing federal, state, and local governments move from collecting information in disconnected, static documents to collecting that data in searchable form, collecting it in an open data standard that allows you to access and search that information. This is a movement that we're excited to participate in because it will make governments more efficient, more open, driven by data management, and we all benefit. Today, you're going to get insight into how these changes are occurring, and Hudson and his team have put together an exciting, informative, insightful program for you. So, again, I welcome you. I hope you have a good conference, and I'll speak to you later in the day.